Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this Q&A of Madame, which has just screened at the Raindance Festival online. So we're very happy to welcome the director of the film, Stefan Rithauser. Thank you for joining us, Stefan.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
So where are you based?
I'm in Berlin right now. I'm at home in Berlin. This is my office. And originally I'm from Geneva. I sort of live between both cities, but I am in Berlin now, and we're about to go into a second lockdown.
Yeah, as most of Europe, unfortunately, yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your film, which is really, really just beautiful and really, really touching. So I'm, first of all, so obviously it compiles a lot of footage that you shot throughout your life with your grandmother and also family footage. At what point in your life did you decide, okay, now is the time for me to make this movie?
Well, actually, I had no intention whatsoever to make a movie about my life, nor about the life of my grandmother. I started filming her when she was 90, because I didn't want to forget all the stories she was telling me.
Yeah.
I wanted to preserve her memory in a way. And I went on filming her for a couple of years until her death. It's only many, many years later, 10 years after she passed away, actually, that I found these tapes again and watched them. And there I found some interesting scenes, some jewels even. And I thought, there I could maybe make a film about the condition of women, about femininity. This was my initial ambition. And it's a long story that developed over the course of many years. But my first idea was to make a film about my grandmother, about her biography, but also about the condition of women in general. And I showed the first version of the editing to a friend of mine, and she said, okay, your grandma is very interesting, but that's not enough for a film. Where is your point of view? We need to know what you feel. What was your special relationship with her? You're telling in an objective manner the life of your grandmother, but that's not enough for a film. And it's only then that I put myself into the film as a character. And I thought this was a possibility to broaden the spectrum of what was being told. And instead of being just about the condition of women, it was about gender in general. And then adding the perspective of a gay man and of a coming out story that needs to challenge the norms of masculinity, femininity, the gender differences and everything, that I thought was a little more interesting and challenging.
And so it started with you finding those tapes again, but I'm curious, do you think it's that story, those two parallel stories and the stories of your relationship with her, is it something that you could have done before, sort of closer to the time that she died?
I'm not sure I was in the right state of mind back then. I keep learning about myself and about the world. This film was the opportunity to look back into my past, to understand what values, what norms shaped me as a boy. And all of a sudden it was clear to me that my grandmother and I, although we have very different paths of life, we have one thing in common beyond the blood, the shared blood that we have. Both of us, we had to fight the same system in order to be free. Both of us suffered, and we were victims of the patriarchy system. She, as a woman, as we see in the film, she was forced to be married when she was 15. She had no access to education, everything. And she had to go against her father, her family, the entire social structure in order to be free. As far as I'm concerned, 2 generations later, I was a privileged boy, a white boy in a bourgeois environment. I had many advantages in life. I had access to education and everything, but I realized I had to fight against the same system. Why? Because as a gay boy, you cannot express yourself. You're forced into a tunnel in a way. You were forced into a unique way of being a male, of becoming a male. And when you feel deep inside that this is not matching your feelings, then you have to make a step aside. You have to look at the world differently. You have to define yourself differently. So it became clear to me that I was a victim of this system, but also I was participating in that system by reproducing all these norms, all these words that we shape our consciousness with, also that we shape our beings with. I was reproducing the sexist and the homophobic language, environment, etc. And it's only after I was able to be conscious of that, that I freed myself from all that, that I was able to connect the dots and find myself in a way. And then it lasted more time. I mean, I had other activities in the meantime. I didn't think of that film immediately. I think it came just at about the right time. And it took me 5 years to complete it. That's another story.
So did that parallel of, you know, fighting sort of preconceptions and sort of patriarchal values, that parallel between your life and her life, was that apparent for you as you were growing up, or when you were starting to find yourself, or did you see that when you were making the film?
No, I was completely unconscious of all that. The only thing that did match it was this feeling I had, my desire for boys, but I didn't even understand it as such. I thought there was something bizarre. I thought I was a little peculiar. Maybe this is not something you can talk about to your friends, to your parents, to anyone in your environment, or to your school teacher or whatsoever. This is something you learn very, very early to hide, because you know it doesn't match, because you know the words that describe this thing are not good words to use. You know it, you feel it. But I was convinced I was straight. And then, let's say, I don't know, around 13, 14, 15, you feel it more and more, and you start to realize, oh, maybe I could be gay. And then you sort of take that thought and lock it up and throw it down the dungeon, or up the dungeon and down to the cellar, whatever it is. You're so afraid, because you know what it means. You know the consequences of that. It means that you would probably be excluded from your family, from your friend circle, that you couldn't get the job you want and everything. So I was very scared of all that, and I was not conscious at all. And I think it's very interesting, because it applies to a lot of people around the globe, that they cannot grow up and fully develop according to their own feelings. And basically, I think this film, that's what I tried to do, is the story of two people that long to be free and that need to fight the system. And I think it's the case of many people. And I hope people can identify with that.
Yeah, well, so, I mean, I certainly did, looking at the film, and it's true what you say about sort of those words that are sort of, that shape our worldview with regards to our genders or sexual orientation or whatever, and that the first time that you hear about what you later realize is your identity, it's all negative, it's all pejorative. And there's that intense moment when your father plays Comme ils disent by Charles Aznavour, which for the English-speaking audiences was covered by Liza Minnelli as What Makes a Man a Man. So if you want to hear the words in English, it's that version, which is also magnificent. Yes. And then, yeah, and then he says, "Oh, you could almost like that person. Yeah, he's so good. You could almost like that that character." And it's like, it's always negative words, and then you just end up being able to overcome that as time goes on, as you own yourself a little bit more and you discover.
Yes, the constitution of our identity begins with insults, with negative feelings, with fear, with shame. And how do you overcome that? It's very difficult. And I'm talking about a time when there was no internet, there was no LGBT people portrayed in the media. There were a few characters in some films. So there was the Queen, you know, in La Cage aux Folles, the Birdcage, and we all laughed at it. But it was ridiculous. It was laughable, and you don't want to be laughed at. I did not feel like a big queen, although maybe I became one, but I had to come to terms with myself first. And it's very interesting when I came across I came upon these tapes also that I made myself with my friends when I was 13, when I was a teenager. These Western movies, I show some excerpts of these little home movies in the film. I was stunned by the violence of these images, and I had to reflect on that. And with the distance, I tried to analyze these sequences. I was like, what do I see? I see a bunch of boys, me, my brother, and my neighbors, taking the video camera of my dad and filming ourselves. I was staging the whole thing. What do? We fight, we play the cowboys, we play the alpha male, we beat each other up, we shoot at each other. So we try to express our masculinity this way. And I think it's pretty amazing. And how do we portray the opposite sex? There were no girls in my neighborhood, so we were only boys. So we ridiculed them in a way. They're either the slut, it's a slut, or the stupid housewife that does the laundry. Basically, this was our idea of what a woman should be or can be. And as I'm trying to explain in the film, I had this very simplistic idea of what a man and what a woman should be. And this is going on. We're still teaching the children in many, many segments of society that there's only one way to be a guy and only one way to be a girl. And fortunately, it's changing in some more educated circles, and it's getting a little bit mainstream now. There's a rainbow wave invading the world, although the brown wave is also coming back. So there's a big fight between progressive and conservative nowadays. So I'm still optimistic, but I think it's very interesting, and it's a key issue for me, sexual orientation. And also, this is one thesis I'm trying to develop in my film, the links between homophobia and sexism. For me, homophobia is only the consequence of sexism. And it's only when if one day we would be able to broaden the spectrum of what a man could be or a woman could be, if there were more possibilities of being a man, if we would not stigmatize the little girl that wants to play soccer and has short hair, to just take a big cliche and label her as a tomboy. She cannot even be a girl, she's a tomboy. Or same with a little boy that is gracious and delicate, and immediately he's effeminate, or he's a little queen, or he's a little faggot, or whatever. It's very depreciative, it's very negative. So if we would stop that, and if we could grow up with a broader understanding of what a human being can be, if we could go beyond genders, I think everyone could benefit from that. Even the straight people that supposedly are not challenged for that. This straight identity of a male, it doesn't suit most straight guys either. And they suffer from that, but they feel the urge, they feel the need, because society tells them that way. They feel the need to be that way, to perform. And it's amazing, as a kid also, you always have to perform your masculinity, and you have to prove it to the group. Otherwise, you can be suspected of not being a real guy, or a faggot that gets fucked up the ass. And this is the most shameful thing to do or to be, and the activity that is incompatible with masculinity. Why? Because it looks like what a girl is performing. So we cannot be a girl. So there's only one way to be a guy. I am a guy because I am no girl, because I am no faggot.
Yeah.
And if we can break that pattern, I think it would benefit the entire world, and we would have less stupid alpha males going to war all the time and, you know, massacring and so much harm around the world.
Yeah, that was interesting. The bit where you those home movies with the westerns, it's like it was really clear that there was an attempt at sort of being macho and sort of expressing it that way. And as you said, now we kind of see it in the world as well. Like, just for instance, Trump is doing rallies playing Macho Man by the Village People in his rallies. Maybe he should be told a bit more about Village People.
Forgetting that it's a gay band.
Yeah. He should be told a little bit more about the history of that song, but yeah. And so was it difficult for you going back into those tapes and looking at those memories, not just the memories of your grandmother that you clearly had a very tight bond with, but also going back into those places for yourself that time in your life?
Yes and no. If I'm very honest, it was on one hand, it was fascinating. I had this incredible material that my father gathered, also the things that I filmed, because I'm this sort of archivist, how do you say in English?
Archivist?
Yeah. And it was quite amazing to be able to go back and see, oh, this is how I looked, this is what we did, and then try to analyze it with a sociological eye also. And then it was quite disturbing also to go back down memory lane and to figure out, okay, this was me, and then trying to analyze as honestly as possible, what was I feeling at this time, to be able to tell my story in a very honest way. This was my aim, to be authentic. But then what is honesty? Am I seeing things correctly? Am I distorting my memories? Am I trying to shape them the way I am looking at the world right now? So in retrospect, it can be a slippery path. So I tried to stay close to my feelings. Also, I have to mention that I benefited a lot from my team, which was a very reduced team. It was basically my assistant and my editor, and they helped me to take the right distance, because it's difficult sometimes to talk about oneself. And to be honest, I was so fed up with my own image. When you look at your own self for months and months and months, and then you in the editing studio, and then you go back home and you think about it, and you have to tell your own story, and you have to go back to some painful moments. You might hurt some people also, because I am not the only one involved here. I involved my entire family. So my grandmother passed away. She's not here to defend herself anymore. But my dad, my mom, my brother, they're still alive, and they're in that film. And especially the relationship I had with my parents was like, okay, I'm going to confront them with the coming out process. Once again, I'm going to say some unpleasant things I know that they probably would not like to remember or to be reminded of. So, but I did, because it was necessary, I think, to be honest. I tried to add a little bit of humor also, to take some distance with myself, and not to be too narcissistic. Also, that was some anxiety that I have, some fear that I have. And you know, there's nothing worse than to look at family footage, especially when it's not your family. So I was very afraid that I would find no audience for that film. So like, who would be interested in watching the family footage and the story of that guy and that grandmother that nobody knows about? And my parents, when I showed them the first version of the film, they told me, oh, you made a beautiful film, and it's very moving to see us when we were young and to see grandma again, but we don't know who could be interested in such a film, you know? And then when I watched it to my co-producers at Swiss Television, they told me it worked. And that some people that didn't know us could be able to be interested by that story. And I felt very relieved. And now I must say I'm quite astonished because the film has been playing around the world, and I get so many messages almost daily from people I don't know that tell me that they have been touched, that they have been reminded of their grandmother, also of their identity. They told me basically, I've had hundreds and hundreds of testimonies that it helped them understand them a little bit better, understand themselves, and also understand the others and open the dialogue. And this is maybe the crucial point. If this film is able to help people get a better dialogue, people to talk with one another about taboo topics, about very, very central issues in life, such as sexuality, identity, love, and so on, well, then I think I'm in a good film, if I may say so.
Yeah, no, you absolutely did. Absolutely. But I think it's also part of just the storytelling aspect. Yes, it's a very personal story, but just people will find themselves and see themselves in a story, regardless of how specific or broad it is. And so you mentioned your co-producers. How easy or how difficult was it? That's an audience question. How easy or difficult was it to find support for the film in the production process?
Well, actually, it was quite difficult because I've been rejected from public Swiss cinema funding twice. You have 3 attempts. Right. And the first 2 times they told me, no interest in such a personal story that is like an anecdote. It's not universal enough. That's what I've been told. And we have no interest in producing that with and then you want to produce it yourself. I found no producer. So finally, at the 3rd attempt, it worked. And some private foundation also helped me. And then when I got the funding from the Swiss government, then the Swiss television jumped in, but they didn't want to take the risk before that. And they finally supported the film. And then once you have a TV channel and you have some public funding, then it's easier to get more. But because they know that the film will be made and that if it has support already, it's always the first step. And I had to convince myself also, because when you get rejections, then you're like, well, first of all, I'm not going to have enough money to make it. You know, I can make it on my own, on my computer, but that's, I needed some professional team also to help me, a real editor, to have the distance again. So it was a very difficult and long path. Twice I had to stop production because I ran out of money. Okay. And also I was lost. I admit it. I got lost on the way many times, lost in the mass of all the footage that I had. I didn't know what I wanted to tell anymore. I wanted to say too many things. And again, my team helped me saying, okay, this is essential. What are we talking about here? We're trying to do a film about gender. It's not about your life. It's about gender. We are using you as a character and using your grandmother as a character in order to tell a universal story about gender. And I always had to bear that in mind in order to make the right decisions also in the editing room. What do I write? What do I say? What do I leave out? This is not relevant to the story. This is not relevant to the audience, and so on. And it was a constant fight in my head. It was a challenge, and it was also a teamwork in the end. Of course, I'm responsible. I'm the director. I'm the producer. I could decide everything. I had no producer that would bust my ass and say, you stop now, no, I could go on forever. And one day I had to say, okay, this is the final cut. And now we're going to take this film and share it with the world.
And so you mentioned your team, just quickly, because we're running out of time, but we're an audience question as well was, so you had a team around you. Was there female input as well? Because there's a gay character and a female character. And so was there female input in the production process?
Yes, absolutely. My team is almost exclusively made of women.
Okay, perfect.
Look at the credits. I mean, there's also, well, there's my mom in the cast. She also shot some pictures. The images where you see my dad, my mom shot them. So she's also as a camera woman. But yeah, the two main persons is Marie-Catherine Tyler, my longtime assistant, and she's also a filmmaker. She's a friend. She's an accomplice for many, many years. And Nathalie Barret, the editor, who has just been nominated in Germany for Best Editing with my film at that very prestigious festival in Germany, the Edimotion Awards. So it was great for her and also for the film. It's a big honor. And she's a great editor, and I owe her a lot.
That's fantastic. And just last question before we wrap up. So clearly your grandmother was a formidable woman. And so clearly you're on the quite extraordinary path yourself as well. And so now where you're at in your life and having made that film, what do you think is the more important thing that you learned from your grandmother?
I think about my grandmother every day of my life. With the film now, of course, even more, I'm reminded of that. But my grandmother taught me so many things. I would say what I get from her is probably the love of life, her curiosity, and the love of work also. She loved working. She enjoyed herself, but she was always learning something. She was so thirsty for life. She was so passionate. And I think we're both the same as personalities. And yeah, I owe her a lot, and I think about her every day. I'm very lucky to have had such a grandma.
Well, I think that love letter is a beautiful sort of testament to her legacy. So thank you for making the film and for sharing it. And thank you for being with us tonight. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for selecting the film. And thank you, everybody, for watching.
Okay. Thank you so much. And everybody keep checking out the selection of queer films in the festival.
Okay. Bye-bye, Baptiste.
Bye. Good to meet you.